downloaded an app, a dating app, originally looking for friends because it had the option where you could be friends. I found out the hard way that that's not what men are really looking for on apps like that.
Nope.
So I happened to meet my ex-husband.
For a long time I thought God hated me because I hurt my best friend, I failed my family, I couldn't keep a job. Hey guys, what's going on? I'm DJ.
And I'm Ni, and we are going to share with you another storytime video about what happened between the times that we were apart.
Yes.
So if you haven't watched our last video on the story time of how we met and everything, which was like just a short backstory because way longer than how it was,
Way longer.
I suggest that you go watch that before coming to this video and the next video that we're going to share after this. So how should we start? You might be a little embarrassed, we might be a little embarrassed, but I broke up with him because there are certain things that he didn't mature from back then, and I was just tired of it. So I decided to leave after we had a mother pregnancy. We moved out and everything, and I was like, you know what, I can't do this anymore because I was stressed out with the way of just how things were going and just feeling like everything was falling on me, so I couldn't take it anymore. So during that time, I moved back to my parents' home, which was my grandparents at the time, and I was in my 20s because this was 2020. This was about March or April 2020 when I left, and I decided to live there up until I had met another person, and we had relationships in between this for 5 years, but we've known each other for 8 years. But within those, outside of those 3 years, those 5 years that we were broken apart, we had our own relationships, we had our own issues,
and some on and off moments.
On and off moments. And I met somebody in between that at the end of 2020, around November 2020, and we had a good relationship somewhat. The way that it started wasn't too good, but in the midst of it, it became good, and then it started ending pretty well. This guy was lazy. This guy was he procrastinated a little too much. And so before I found out all of those things, my parents were like, don't do it, you need to take time, this might be a rebound, because I had left him in April of 2020, and I was so upset with him that I was trying to fill that void back then at a time when I wasn't really following Christ, and I needed to realize that Christ is pretty much all that I needed. But sometimes we fall into those pitfalls where it's just we really want something to fill that void, and sometimes we don't feel that God is enough when he really is. So I was with this guy. We were supposed to get married. I moved out with him. We lived in LA for about a couple of months, and then the lease was about a year, but I couldn't do it anymore with him. So I decided to break ends, and God was honestly calling me home, because every time when I had space to myself to actually think, I'd always hear the Lord tell me that it's time to go home. And I didn't understand until I started running into circumstances that were okay, what the heck? Circumstances where if you hear God telling you to do something and you don't learn the first time to obey him, you're gonna learn. So
yes,
I went through that. At the time, about May 2020, I found out that I was pregnant with my first child. He's my son, with that man. November 2021, was it 2021?
I'm pretty sure it was. 2021
is when I left.
Yeah.
Because the Lord was calling me home. And most people might be like, no, that's not how it happens and stuff. But if you're not married, one, and that's not the person that God has for you, two, and you're living in self-will, he will backtrack you to be back on the path that he needs you to be on. So I was a single mom for about a couple of months, And I had downloaded an app, a dating app, originally looking for friends because it had the option where you could be friends with people. But apparently I found out the hard way that that's not what men are really looking for on apps like that.
Nope.
So I happened to meet my ex-husband. This was my first husband. Later on down that line, he was good, you know, stepfather wise, but he was horrible to me. When I got married, DJ and I stopped talking completely. With the fact that I met this guy, he was abusive, he was narcissistic, he was manipulative, and I dealt with so many things with this guy. So fast forward, I moved to Japan with this person because he was peer pressuring me. He pressured me into marriage, and then I was like, you know what? I might as well just go over there to make things work. And my mom, normally she's like for marriage and stuff, but she's like, I don't think this is the marriage that God wants you to be in, first off. And normally, like, she would never say something like that. But when just, if you're really a Christian, you'll know that the devil also forms covenants. And it's not just, you know, people can get married and form a covenant under God. Like if you're a non-believer, if you're two non-believers that get married, is that covenant really formed under God or not? Like, but in this case, you know, he acted accordingly like a non-believer, and I was a believing spouse. Was always so abusive, and one day I had to reach out to DJ because there was no one else. Like, he has separated me from everybody that I basically knew, family, friends. He told me that with every horrible thing he was doing to me, that those issues stay between me and him, and I should be only talking to him about it. But it was pretty hard too, because like if I wanted to talk to him about it, it would just go to the same state. So I had my daughter with him. Those 2 years of being in that marriage was just complete hell. So one day I had to pray to the Lord. I was like, God, is this a relationship you really want me to be in? Something that you really want me to work out? Because, you know, the church folks say that no matter how hard it is, no matter how abusive it gets, no matter how like X, Y, and Z, that I should stay here. But your word and everything that you're pointing me to tells me that like it's time to leave. Like, this is separating me from my relationship with you in all kinds of ways. It's killing just who I am as a person. And because I think last year was the last attempt of like him being physical, and that attempt pushed me to have an attempt on my life, and I ended up in the ER. And there was one instance where there was abuse, and when I looked into his eyes, like his eyes are all black, and the Lord had told me it's time to leave. And that's like the first time I heard him say that so clear, but I was like so confused because I'm like, wouldn't you want me to stay in a marriage, especially this is my first, and like, you know. So after that, I moved back to California. For some time, he was on deployment, things happened. I was tired of the cheating, I was tired of the lying and all that stuff. And October, I finally had pushed for a divorce because it was the time where I could finally leave. I could finally do it without him peer pressuring me, trying to talk me out of it, trying to guilt trip me out of it, and then telling me I'm not worth it, and then making me run back to him out of a trauma response. And during that whole year up until I want to say this year of May, God was really like working on me, trying to rebuild the pieces, trying to make me understand that love is outside of a relationship and I can have that love with him. I tried to have a relationship, but this time I was really honest with myself before like DJ and I were really talking. And I told this person, I was like, I can't do this, you know, I'm not ready. Like, I gotta really work on myself. Like, it's really hard. Meanwhile, you know, my ex was in a whole relationship. During our separation, I'm like, you know, it's whatever. But me, on the other hand, like, I tried for a month and I'm like, I can't do this. Like, this is not right. I can't do what he's doing. Like, and it's not even retaliation. It's not even revenge. It's just like I want to be loved. I want to know what it is to be loved and to love somebody and them accept my love. But I just can't do it at this time. So I did let God work on me, and it was pretty hard. I let him work on me for at least like the remainder of the year. And then one day, I was at my mom's house, and I can't remember what month this was, but God had told me to prepare a wedding dress. And I don't think I ever told you about that. But
Actually, you did.
I don't know. He told me to prepare a wedding dress, and I was in shock because I was still going through like this divorce and stuff, and I'm like, so am I gonna remarry like my ex or something? Like, there is no man that I'm talking to for this to happen. Like, at least one that's consistent in my life. Like, but I kept hearing him say, prepare a wedding dress. So eventually I prepared for a wedding dress. I'm like, okay, what's the point? And then I started at least talking hope into myself, like, you know, I'm gonna get married again. God's giving me a second chance. And, you know, I would always talk about that. And then one day I had a dream. I didn't see the figure, but it was more of like a Holy Spirit and me, all dressed in white. There were all these doves around, and the person was like a glowing figure, like, and it was like a pure type of love. It was probably more than I would ever even dream of, like something that I know that I needed. But being like married to Christ before actually joining in a union that would be healthier than what I've ever been in. But during that time, I decided to build my business, my art business, up again, work on new drawings, build my money back up, because being a single mother of two is hard. But I had to push through it to make sure I went to college, just so I can also have money to provide. Like, I had to stack up things on myself so that I could be the best mom that I could be for my kids, and be the best person I could be for myself. And so that was where most of my time was spent. I mean, mine was depressing, and then flowers finally grow at the end of it. So
I ain't gonna lie, y'all. Mine's a little dark, so I'm gonna try to shorten it and not say too much, because you know how YouTube is. Well, after me and her split, I went through a lot of depression because, truth be told, it was my fault. I wasn't mature enough back then in certain areas that she needed me to be, and I just couldn't let certain things go. So eventually I basically left the town where we lived at. I took the car that we were supposed to have together, and I just kept driving for hours and hours. I didn't care where I went. And I eventually landed in a little city called Pomona. And for those of you that live in California, you know that this city is not the best at all. And well, I ended up at a bar. I was thinking about honestly jumping off a bridge because I lost the best person I've ever met. I lost my best friend, the love of my life, and it just really, really hurt. I did try reaching out to her before I left, but she just didn't want to see me at all. So it was like, okay, you know what? I screwed up. Nothing is working anymore. I even lost my job because during COVID at the time, a lot of people were getting laid off, and there were also a lot of people that were trying to find work, but they couldn't find work because nobody was trying to hire anybody because of social distancing and everything. And so I just basically stopped paying my phone bill. I stopped paying my car insurance. Basically essentials that you would need to get through everyday life. I basically just stopped paying all my bills and just disappeared. I just didn't care anymore. And this led me to meeting some people at this bar who eventually one of them would become my then boss, who would give me a job, only to realize that this person really did not have the best intentions at all. I would unfortunately end up having a moment of relations with this person. This person would get me a job at their facility, which was like basically like UPS driver delivery job, where I was the only black person there, and it was basically just, you know, all Mexican folk. The pay was okay, but unfortunately anytime I would go into the apartment, this person had a really bad a really bad drug addiction, and they would always do things out in the open in the apartment, and it would make me feel very uncomfortable, even though I was used to that environment at the time, but that was not the environment I was trying to be around. I only stayed around because, one, I didn't want to go back home. I didn't want to face my failures. I felt like I didn't belong anywhere, so I was just trying to move on. Fast forward over time, this would lead to me and my depression getting worse. I would fall into alcohol, drug usage, and a lot of fornication along the way. I would be in the streets, and unfortunately get involved in a lot of illegal crime rings that, while it did bring me a lot of wealth at the time, unfortunately it was short-lived. When this happened, I could feel that my life was slipping, and I was just thinking, all right, I guess I'm just gonna lay here and die. It's not like anybody else cared, because for a long time I thought God hated me because I hurt my best friend, I failed my family, I couldn't keep a job, and no matter where I went, I was nothing but, I felt like a failure. But it was only because I kept following my own way. When that happened, instead of my heart stopping, I felt like throwing up, and so I threw up. A lot of black stuff came out. And this was one of the first times, one of which become few of many, where I actually heard God's voice telling me, it's time to go home. And then I'm over here like still puking, and I'm just thinking, like, am I going crazy? Whose voice is that? And then I realized, I started thinking, I'm like, wait, God? I'm like, but why? Like, why should I go home? During this time, apparently there were also people looking for me too. My mom even reached out to her, asking her where I was at.
Correction, his mom kept texting me about him, and I didn't want to talk to him, to the point where I'm like, all right, let me just reach out and see where he even is, you know?
Luckily, I had Wi-Fi, otherwise I wouldn't have answered. But God kept telling me it's time to go home. And, well, I basically got off my high horse, was just like, you know what? Yeah, it's time. So I got up, I went to the living room to these people who I thought were my friends at the time, but only to realize in the end, the only thing we all had in common was we just liked getting high together. It led to a lot of dumb decisions being made. Luckily, my mom was able to let me come home. I had to go through rehab, but I eventually ended up in another relationship, but unfortunately, those were the worst 8 months of my life. And it even led me to even more depression. And in the end, this person didn't have my best interests at heart and basically used me for their own gain.
You know what's crazy is, at the time when I was married to my ex, she reached out to me out the blue when Dorian and I were not even talking. It had been like almost a year. And she reached out to me asking me about Dorian. I'm like, why would I tell you about somebody that, like, I wish things worked out with, and my life is not even, like...
I was so ticked off that she did that.
And I reached out to Dorian. That was the first time in a long time that I even reached out to him. And I was like, do you know this person? Like, why is she talking about me? Why does she know who I am? Like,
this person basically went through all of my social media and went through my phone while I was sleeping. And again, worst 8 months
it's the
of
same
my
thing
life.
for me. The person that I was with went through my phone every time I was asleep, and he would always play victim.
Yeah. Same
I don't
scenario.
know, military men are something else, and I would never, ever again.
Yeah, no.
Unless, yeah, no. There is no unless.
If someone really loves you and they trust you and they care about you, you shouldn't have to look through their phone while they're asleep. Because if you have to sneak and look at their phone, chances are you still have some growing to do and some healing to do.
Even with the issue that I had with him, I never looked through his phone. I gave him the benefit of doubt, even though I got proof disappointment that he was cheating. Literally, literal proof in front of my face, and I never looked at his phone.
Due to the help of my family, my brother, and also a few friends that literally kept telling me that, hey, we don't think this is a good idea. This would bring me into the lowrider community where, even though I've grown up all...
You've always been doing that.
Babe, can I...
You've always been doing that.
Yeah, but thing is, okay, she's right. I've always been in it. However, this gave me like the bigger push to really just be like, you know what? I'm gonna return. I'm gonna get back to where I feel comfortable at, where I know I belong at, where I can thrive. And ever since that, it's been leading to a lot of places, but I'm gonna save that portion for part 3 of the next video, because yeah, this video is already getting a little too long. But basically, to make a long story short, y'all, during the time we were split apart, we went through a lot of really sad and depressing moments that would lead us to make a lot of not well-informed decisions. However, through it all, as always, the Lord prevails.
Long story short, we both ended up depressed, trying to fill voids that we couldn't fill without God, for sure. Not really having that relationship with Christ really does like hurt you a ton, because you will try to fill yourself up with the world instead of seek God, and you think that your own way is the best way, but it never goes that way. It may go that way temporarily, but eventually you will find out.
It's true. Take it from me, y'all. I've tried to go my way many times for many years, and it's only led me back to the same spot where God put me. Sometimes the Lord brings you many steps back because you either have something to learn or you just aren't ready for the next step. So
too many steps forward.
Yes, and sometimes it's just not your season yet, so he prepares you to get into said season.
But yeah, guys, that's all that we wanted to talk about. It does go more in depth, but it's such a long video that I don't have space on my iPhone like that for it, or I don't know if I do. But thank you guys for watching this video, and we hope to catch you on our next one. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below for what you would like to see. And thank you guys for watching.